Hello guys, welcome back to my reviews. The finale of series 14, absolutely. Different finale this is. It's a bit of a more of a downer this is, probably. As we're going to look at some films that I've actually been quite disappointed with, actually. I won't say flat out hate these movies, but they're, quite, disappointed when I saw them, actually, But let's go through them. They're both from 2018. First one we've got is the Equaliser 2. So I've seen the first one a couple of years ago, really, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really good film. Based on the TV series, I think, was it Edward Woodwick? I think it is. I think he was in Wicker Man, wasn't he? I think. Basically like a guy who just takes out people, of course. He's like a fixing man type person, really. And obviously, the film version came out starring Denzel Washington. Great movie, I think in 2014 it came out. Again, pretty good film. A really, really good one, actually. Very good performance from him in that one. And indeed, when it came to doing a sequel, though, I was a bit sort of do we need? I think the first one sort of does it well on its own. Do we need a sequel to this? And obviously, you tend to get loads of sequels these days. You're thinking, this film's done extremely well. It's like, for example, if you look at Taken, that's done excessively well. Done pretty good. You don't need two sequels to go with it. I mean, the third was just diabolical. It's like that. With this one, I was sort of trepidation, and once watching it through from the beginning, it's like, okay, so we're sort of getting somewhere with this one. Opens up in Istanbul, Washington's character basically takes out a group, like a little crime gang or something in that on a little train, like a little crime boss, very much. Indeed, they sort of goes back to his roots, of course, and then stuff happens. Really, I think the main thing with this sequel is that the ending, the final climax, of course, the final act, is basically just over the top, because it's to do with he's been hunted by his ex-military comrades, very much strangely enough, and decided to take down himself, trying to assassinate him, taken down. Obviously, again, it's he's hard to kill, all that sort of stuff, all that jazz. And then obviously the climax, the third act of this, he goes back to his home. I think it's his old hometown when he was married or something, to his old house, and it's during a hurricane, and basically all this sort of stuff, and it's basically fighting men in a hurricane, of course, doing this whole thing. I felt like that's not the best. It feels like a bloody Tom Cruise movie, really. If you put Tom Cruise in this film, very much like a Jack Reacher film or something. It's pretty much the same, really. I felt like he didn't do it injustice, whereas the first one was more grounded, a bit more intimate, It's feels like Harry Brown. They're more intimate in terms of vigilante films, really. It's smaller scale, interesting characters, but also just in ways to take them out. I think that you sort of introduce people who think that guy definitely needs to kill him. He'll probably be killed at the end of the movie, that sort of thing, really. Whereas with this one, you don't feel for these characters, really. I don't think for the military characters, they don't really offer something. It's just been thrown in, and it's just there, really. I was just a bit sort of underwhelmed by it, really. So again, I think it starts off nicely, but it just sort of drags off. It does, and leaves into an underwhelming thing, really. But that's what I can say about Equaliser 2. Nothing else really to mention about that, but anyhow. If you think it's a good film, fair enough, but I just don't think it's a good sequel, really. Not to say it's not a bad movie, to some extent, but I just don't think it's a good sequel, really. It's sort of mid-tier, really. I would say, I've seen worse movies than this, really. So, there we go. And to finish off, we have Holmes and Watson. I think it's the second collaboration with Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly. Obviously, the first one they did was Step Brothers back in... Oh, God, I'm trying to think. How was that? That's maybe 2012, 2013, 2014? Something like that, actually. Which actually is a very good... Which is a better film, really. Step Brothers is a better film. Indeed. Obviously, this film sort of tries to rekindle it, try to recapture that sort of style. That's an interesting style, what Riley and Ferrell had been doing, but obviously it didn't really pay off really. Just to put it out there, I'm not really a fan of Will Ferrell really. I mean, he's an interesting fella indeed, but some of his films I think are interesting. I think the other guys with him and Mark Wahlberg, I think that's a okay film. It is, you know, decent comedy, big cast of course, and it's actually sort of it's interesting. Stranger Than Fiction, that one when that writer sort of writes his life really. That's a pretty good film as well. That is, you know. I just do feel like his comedy stuff. I mean, probably people say Anchorman's probably a bad one. Yeah, it's true, indeed. But I find his comedy stuff just not very just interesting really. You know, I don't feel engaged with his comedy style really, unlike some others. It's like I can watch an Eddie Murphy movie and think like, you know, there's some charm to it, of course, with the actor who thinks it's, you know, it's interesting because Eddie Murphy's got charm and charisma all, you know, like 24/7 he does, so that's no problem. Especially with others as well. Like if you do like a British film, probably have like a funny comedian or something like that, or comedy actor. Definitely win you over. Will Ferrell doesn't, unfortunately. In some instances, yes, depends on what this whole film is like and who he's with, actually. You know, not saying that, you know, John C. Reilly's an actor. He's a good actor, he is, because he's done quite a lot of interesting stuff, you know. He's done Boogie Nights, for God's sakes. You know, that's one film. You know, he's done a few eclectic range, really. I mean, he's done comedy, but he's also done, like, obscure films as well, drama, you know. He's done quite a decent amount, whereas Ferrell is more lean towards comedy, really. Indeed. Light-hearted comedy and some bad comedy, really, I think. So, this, of course, the title suggests, like, it's referencing Sherlock Holmes and Dr. John Watson, of course. I think this is more of a sort of version, of course. Like, obviously, I do blame this, of course. I blame Stephen Moffat's Sherlock for this, like, doing some interest. There are some horrible films of Sherlock out there, really. There's like a direct-to-video one, like he's up against like monsters who attack London or something, like an alien invasion, and a full like a War of the Worlds thing, and something to do with Spring-Heeled Jack or something. It's like, what the hell's that? You know, it's like cheaply done and everything else. Like again, it's like direct-to-videos exclusively on video or DVD, whatever. You know, you see it in supermarkets or whatever. It's like, really. And then you come to something like this, of course, and Moffat's Sherlock opened the gateway to like not the best iterations. I mean, there's been great stuff beforehand. You know, Basil Rathbone, Jeremy Brett. You know, there's always these great actors who take on the mantle. Even Tom Baker himself, who did it once. You know, there's plenty of them really. Even some good loving parodies like Basil the Great Mouse Detective by Disney. That's a brilliant film. That is, you know, that homages Sherlock Holmes in a nice way. Obviously, this is just like a parody of it, like itself, and doesn't take it too seriously, indeed. But it can be frustrating. I can see behind the, you know, it's like there's a good cast, of course, because you have Anna Faris in this as well. You've also got Mark Strong, Rob Brydon as well as the Inspector, who basically gets a short shrift all the time. Like, obviously, you get this. I think what Ferrell does with Holmes in this is like he really shows him like he's very sort of egotistical, have a very strong ego, like he's really just like really in your face. Whereas Watson's has a little bit of genius to him, of course, but like in the softer side, but has like a I don't know, it's like a stupidity type side with him, really. Of course, like he's Holmes' lackey in a way. Whereas I think with Watson and Holmes and Watson, there's always that lackey, but it's like a bit of an equal thing with them, of course. Like Holmes trying to catch up, but also trying to, you know, like be on Sherlock's same level in a way, like setting up on the same box together, very much that type of thing. Whereas it's more like, you know, the ego is very much taken on, and it's like, you know, it's like takes for the roof really. It's like it's 8 feet tall, whereas Dr. John Watson's more like 3 feet tall, pretty much at this point, you know. It's like, it's just one of those things, really. I remember Robbie Collin did a review of this on BBC Radio 6, 5, or 6, 5, 6. I think one of them, really. Please correct me if you wish to. I'm trying to think. I think it might be 5. I think. Who knows? And obviously, you get references to other stuff like selfies. which is like, you know, that's been publicised throughout, and it's like, do we have to, you know, like bring some modern stuff into like old-fashioned times, really, you know, in the Victorian era? It's like, do we really need that? Probably not. Again, it's just one of those things, really. It's just like, also one thing I noticed is, I forgot about this, is like how they meet a doctor, they do. I forgot that, like, so, you know, and obviously she has an assistant who just basically is a cat, has the mind of a cat, or raised up with cats, I think. And it's like, that's strange. Again, it's like, that's going like to like borderline weirdness, really. Again, it's just like, it's not really good comedy, really, you know. It's a bit of a letdown, like I mentioned earlier in the video. It's like, you know, as much as it's got a decent cast, of course, and they do put on the phony British accents, of course, and do attempt to, well, and it's filmed and looks nice, I have to admit, you know, but the way it is written, how it's performed, is just like, it's like hitting a brick wall. It's like, I can't imagine, oh god, I can't imagine stuff like, you know, like Moffat Sherlock being like that. Who knows? He could just parody itself, you know, make a parody itself like he done with other stuff. I mean, like Doctor Who, of course. Like he's really like throwing off the curb, really, at that point. In terms of the later seasons and everything else with that, you know, I find series 3 a bit, you know, it's not absolutely the best in terms of like it's aiming for the Tumblr crowd. Everything else, you know, again, if they did a 5th series like that, you know, like in sort of maybe like this, and also really emulating, you know, I mean, it's just like, yeah, I mean, to be fair, you could just put Jim Parsons as Sherlock Holmes. It's just like, you know, not much difference. There's not much difference between like him and Cumberbatch, really. It's just like, you know, you could just interchange them and make no difference. You could put a wig on Jim Parsons very much to represent Cumberbatch, but nothing. People think, oh yeah, it's just Sherlock Holmes, isn't it? That sort of stuff. It's like, so it sort of ends on that way, of course. Even though I tend to look, you know, on the sort of Sherlock Holmes thing. Even though there is a 3rd Guy Ritchie film coming out with Downey Jr. and Jude Law, whenever that's going to be, you know, so that might be interesting. That might revitalise that sort of thing, because I think the Holmes trade, you know, the Guy Ritchie films, of course, at that point are actually interesting films. Obviously, I reviewed the first one, you know, a couple of series back, so there we go. So that's it, really. So me review series 4 ends with a bit of a downer, of course, but there we go. Just a bit underwhelming films I've seen, really. So, The Equaliser 2 and Holmes and Watson. Thank you guys for watching. As always, see you for the next video, and goodbye.